The emergency beacon cut through space like a scream in the dark. Zaranth pressed her trembling claws against the communication console. Her violet scales dulled with exhaustion and fear. Around her, the bridge of the Keth Moran research vessel, Harmony's Edge, flickered with dying lights, and the acrid smell of burnt circuits filled the recycled air. "Anyone, please," she whispered into the transmitter, her voice breaking. "This is research vessel, Harmony's Edge, of the Keth Moran Scientific Coalition. We are under attack. Our escort ships are destroyed. We carry critical medical research that could save billions of lives across the galaxy. Please, if anyone receives this transmission..." Through the cracked viewport, she could see them coming. The Vaktar Dominion's sleek black warships moved like hungry predators through space, their weapon ports glowing with deadly energy. They had been hunting her ship for 3 days across 2 star systems, determined to capture or destroy the cure her team had developed. The plague had started in the Outer Rim territories, spreading through trade routes like wildfire. It attacked the nervous systems of most known sapient species, causing madness, pain, and inevitable death. The Keth Moran had worked for months to develop a cure, and now they were the only ones who possessed it. The Vaktar wanted to weaponize the plague, to use it as a tool of conquest. Zaranth's communications officer, a young Keth Moran named Veltar, looked up from his station with wide, frightened eyes. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the Vaktar fleet. They're charging their planet crackers." "How long until they're in range?" Zaranth asked, though she already knew the answer would not bring comfort. 15 minutes, maybe less." The bridge shuddered as another blast from the pursuing ships found its mark. Sparks flew from overhead panels, and one of her crew members cried out in pain as debris struck his shoulder. They were a research vessel, not a warship. Their shields were failing, their engines damaged, and their weapons were little more than mining lasers. "Any response to our distress calls?" she asked desperately. Veltar shook his head. "Nothing from the Coalition fleets. The nearest Andromedan patrol is 6 hours away. The crystalline collective ships are too far to reach us in time." Zaranth closed her eyes, feeling the weight of failure crushing her spirit. So many would die if the cure was lost. The plague had already claimed millions of lives across dozens of worlds. Her own homeworld of Keth Mora had lost a quarter of its population before her team had made their breakthrough. "Wait," Veltar said suddenly, his voice rising with excitement. "I'm picking up something. It's coming from the Sol system." "Sul?" Zaranth frowned. "That's in the restricted zone, the Deathworld system." Every sapient being in the known galaxy had heard of Sul and its infamous third planet, Earth. It was classified as a Class 12 death world, a place where evolution had gone mad and created the most dangerous predator species ever discovered. The humans who lived there were considered too violent, too unpredictable to be trusted with galactic civilization. Most species gave their system a wide berth. "They're responding to our distress call," Veltar reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "It's a human ship. They're saying they're on their way." "How far are they?" Zaranth asked. "According to their transmission, they'll be here in 12 minutes. Zaranth felt a chill run down her spine. 12 minutes. The humans claimed they could cross 3 star systems in 12 minutes. That was impossible. Even with the most advanced hyperdrive technology, such a journey should take hours. "Captain," her tactical officer called out, "the Vaktar ships are hailing us. They're demanding our surrender." "Ignore them," Zaranth ordered. "Continue evasive maneuvers. We just need to survive 12 more minutes." The next few minutes passed like hours. The Harmony's Edge shook and groaned under the relentless assault. Her crew worked frantically at their stations, rerouting power, reinforcing shields, doing everything they could to keep the ship intact. 2 more Kethmoran research vessels had already been destroyed, their crews dead, their data lost forever. 8 minutes, Veltar announced. Another blast rocked the ship. This time the lights went out completely before the emergency systems kicked in, bathing the bridge in an eerie red glow. The smell of smoke was getting stronger. "Hull breach on deck 7, someone reported. "Emergency bulkheads are holding, but barely." 5 minutes. Zaranth watched as one of the Vaktar ships positioned itself directly ahead of them, its massive planet cracker weapon beginning to glow with deadly energy. When that weapon fired, it would tear through their remaining shields like paper and vaporize their ship in seconds. 3 minutes. "Captain," the tactical officer said quietly, "the Vaktar flagship is powering up their main weapon. Time to firing. 30 seconds. Zaranth closed her eyes and said a prayer to the ancient gods of her people. She had failed. The cure would be lost and billions would die because she hadn't been strong enough, fast enough, smart enough to escape the Vaktar pursuit. 2 minutes. "Weapon firing in 10 seconds, Tactical reported. "I'm sorry," Zaranth whispered to her crew, to her people, to all the innocents who would suffer because of her failure. 5 seconds. Then space itself seemed to tear open. The hyperspace portal that appeared between the Harmony's edge and the Vaktar fleet was unlike anything Zaranth had ever seen. It didn't open gradually like normal hyperdrive exits. It ripped into reality like a wound, crackling with exotic energies and surrounded by what looked like dancing lightning. What emerged from that portal made Zaranth's blood freeze in her veins. It was a human warship, but it was larger than any vessel she had ever seen. The thing was easily the size of a small moon, its hull black as the void between stars and covered with what looked like weaponry. Thousands of weapon ports dotted its surface, and strange symbols were carved into its armor plating that seemed to shift and move in the light. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force vessel. Retribution," a voice said over the communication channel. The voice was female, calm, and carried an undertone that made Zaranth's survival instincts scream warnings. "We received your distress call. Sorry we're late. Traffic was murder." The Vaktar fleet had frozen in space, their weapons still charging but no longer firing. Zaranth could understand their shock. The human ship made their entire fleet look like insects by comparison. "Vaktar vessels," the human admiral continued, her voice now carrying a tone that could freeze lava. "You are ordered to withdraw immediately. The beings you are attacking are under the protection of the Terran Defense Force. Comply, or face the consequences." The response from the Vaktar came quickly, their commander's voice full of arrogance and fury. "Human, you dare to threaten the might of the Vaktar Dominion? We are claiming salvage rights on this vessel and its contents. Withdraw or be destroyed." There was a pause. When Admiral Chen spoke again, there was something in her voice that made Zaranth glad she was not the target of the human's attention. "Understood. Thank you for clarifying your position." The human ship's weapons came online. Zaranth had seen many space battles in her life, had watched the great fleet engagements between the Coalition and various pirate groups. She thought she understood the nature of space combat. She was wrong. The Retribution didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, streams of pure energy lanced out from its hull, and where they touched the Vaktar ships, matter simply ceased to exist. No explosions, no debris fields. The enemy vessels were there one moment and gone the next, as if they had never existed at all. The entire Vaktar fleet of 37 warships was erased from existence in less than 10 seconds. The communication channel crackled to life again. "Kethmoran vessel, this is Admiral Chen. Please prepare to receive boarding parties. We're here to help." Zaranth stared at the view screen in stunned silence. Around her, her crew sat frozen at their stations, their minds struggling to process what they had just witnessed. The most feared military force in this sector of the galaxy had been annihilated as easily as someone might swat flies. "Captain," Veltar whispered, "what do we do?" Zaranth straightened in her command chair, forcing her voice to remain steady. "We let them aboard, and we pray that staying on their good side is easier than being their enemy." As she watched, smaller craft began to emerge from the massive human ship. They moved with predatory grace through the debris field where the Vaktar fleet had been moments before. The humans were coming, and Zaranth had the distinct feeling that her quiet life as a research scientist was about to become much more complicated. The Deathworlders had answered their call for aid. Now she could only hope that the cure for the plague was worth whatever price the humans would demand in return. Unexpected allies. The human shuttle that docked with the Harmony's Edge was sleek and predatory, like everything else the humans built. Zaranth waited in the docking bay with her senior staff, trying to maintain her composure despite the fear that gnawed at her insides. Her security chief, Commander Thekval, had insisted on a full honor guard, but Zaranth had overruled him. The humans had just demonstrated that they could erase entire fleets from existence. A handful of Kethmaran security officers with ceremonial weapons would be less than useless if the Deathworlders decided to become hostile. The shuttle's airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, and the humans emerged. Zaranth had seen images of humans before, but seeing them in person was different. They moved with a fluid grace that spoke of perfect body control, and their eyes never stopped moving, constantly scanning their surroundings for threats. The lead human was tall even by human standards, with dark skin and silver hair pulled back in a military style. Her uniform was simple but functional, and she wore her authority like a comfortable cloak. "Captain Zaranth, I presume," the human said, stepping forward with her hand extended. "Admiral Sarah Chen, Terran Defense Force, thank you for the distress call. It's been a while since we had a good excuse to leave the Sol system." Zaranth stared at the extended hand for a moment, before remembering that humans had a custom of physical contact during greetings. She reached out hesitantly and was surprised when the Admiral's grip was firm, but not painful. She had expected the Deathworlders to be crude and violent, but Admiral Chen's manner was professional and courteous. "Admiral Chen," Zaranth said carefully, "We are grateful for your assistance, though I must admit we were not expecting help from Earth." Admiral Chen smiled, and Zaranth was struck by how the expression transformed the human's face. "Most people don't. The galaxy seems to think we're all bloodthirsty savages who eat our young and start wars for entertainment." She paused, her smile becoming slightly predatory. "To be fair, some of that reputation isn't entirely undeserved." "The plague," Zaranth said quickly, steering the conversation toward safer ground. "We carry the only known cure. If it's lost, billions die." "Yes, we monitored your transmissions," Admiral Chen interrupted gently. "Don't worry, Captain. The cure won't be lost on our watch. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe. The Vaktar fleet we encountered was just the advance guard. There are 3 more battle groups converging on this position." Zaranth felt her heart skip a beat. 3 more fleets, Admiral? My ship can't survive another attack. "Which is why we're transferring you and your crew to the Retribution," Admiral Chen said. "Your ship and its data will be safe aboard our vessel while we deal with the remaining Vaktar forces." "Deal with them?" Zaranth asked. "Admiral, these fleets number in the hundreds of ships each, even with your advanced technology." Admiral Chen's smile became genuinely warm. "Captain, you've been fighting this war with one hand tied behind your back. The galactic community has rules about weapons development, restrictions on military technology. They believe in proportional responses and civilized warfare." She paused, her expression becoming serious. Humans don't have those limitations. When someone threatens innocent lives, we respond with overwhelming force. It's more merciful in the long run. Over the next few hours, Zaranth watched in amazement as the human crew worked to transfer her people and equipment to the massive Terran vessel. The humans were efficient and professional, but there was something unsettling about them. They moved too smoothly, reacted too quickly, and their casual conversations often touched on topics that made Zaranth's scales crawl with unease. "So then Martinez says to the Vegan ambassador," one human was saying to another as they carried medical equipment past Zaranth, "if you don't like the way we interrogate prisoners, maybe don't take our diplomats hostage." The second human laughed. "What did the ambassador say to that?" "Nothing. Hard to talk when you're screaming." Zaranth tried to convince herself that they were joking, but something in their casual tone suggested otherwise. The Retribution's interior was as impressive as its exterior. The corridors were wide enough for vehicles to pass through, and the walls were lined with displays showing tactical information from across the galaxy. Everything was built on a scale that suggested the humans regularly transported armies rather than crews. Admiral Chen gave Zaranth a personal tour of the medical facilities where her research would be housed. The laboratory was larger than the entire research deck of the Harmony's Edge, and equipped with technology that made Kethmoran science look primitive by comparison. "This is incredible," Zaranth breathed, examining a genetic sequencer that could map an entire genome in minutes rather than days. "How long have humans possessed this level of technology?" "We've had these particular toys for about 50 years, Admiral Chen replied casually. "Of course, most of our really advanced stuff is classified. Can't have the galaxy thinking we're too dangerous after all." Zaranth looked at her sharply. "Too dangerous? Admiral, you just erased an entire fleet from existence. How could you possibly be more dangerous?" Admiral Chen's expression grew thoughtful. "Captain, let me ask you something. How many humans do you think live in the Sol system?" "The galactic census estimates perhaps 1 billion, maybe 2 billion at most," Zaranth replied. "Earth is a death world. It can't support large populations." Admiral Chen shook her head. "There are 47 billion humans in the Sol system alone. Earth itself houses 32 billion. We have another 300 billion spread across colonies in systems that the galactic community considers uninhabitable, and every single one of them is willing to fight to protect innocent life." The numbers hit Zaranth like a physical blow. The entire Kethmoran coalition had a population of less than 20 billion spread across dozens of worlds. The humans had more than 15 times that number living in a single star system. "But that's impossible," she stammered. "The galactic surveys of Earth showed it couldn't support more than a few million beings at most." "The galactic surveys were looking for the kind of pristine garden worlds that most species prefer," Admiral Chen explained. "Humans don't need pristine environments. We adapt. We build cities in deserts, underwater in the hearts of active volcanoes. We turn barren rocks into garden worlds and make homes in places that would kill most sapient species in minutes." They were interrupted by a chime from Admiral Chen's communication device. "Admiral," a voice said, "long-range sensors are detecting the incoming Vactar fleets, 3 battle groups, total strength 437 vessels. Estimated time to intercept 18 hours. "Thank you, Commander," Admiral Chen replied. "Signal the fleet. All vessels are to prepare for combat operations." "Fleet?" Zaranth asked. "Admiral, I only see the Retribution." Admiral Chen smiled. "Computer, reveal escort vessels." The main display shifted to show the space around them, and Zaranth gasped. What had appeared to be empty space was now revealed to be full of human warships, dozens of them, each as large as the Retribution, all hidden by some kind of advanced stealth technology. 43 dreadnoughts plus support vessels, Admiral Chen said matter-of-factly. The Vaktar won't know what hit them. Zaranth stared at the display in shock. The humans had brought enough firepower to level planets. Admiral, surely you don't need this much force to deal with 3 fleets. Probably not, Admiral Chen agreed. But humans have a saying. If you find yourself in a fair fight, you didn't plan properly. We prefer overwhelming superiority in all engagements. But the destruction, the loss of life. Admiral Chen's expression hardened. Captain, the Vaktar had a choice. They could have withdrawn when we asked nicely. They chose to threaten innocent beings carrying a cure for a deadly plague. Now they get to live with the consequences of that choice. She paused. Well, assuming any of them live at all. The next several hours passed in a blur of activity. Zaranth and her research team worked frantically to set up their equipment in the human laboratories, while the crew of the Retribution prepared for battle. The humans moved with mechanical efficiency, but Zaranth could sense an underlying excitement in them. They weren't afraid of the coming fight. They were looking forward to it. Admiral, Zaranth said as they monitored the approaching enemy fleets, perhaps there's another way. Negotiation or... Captain, Admiral Chen interrupted gently, I appreciate your concern for life, even enemy life. It's an admirable quality. But the Vaktar forfeited their right to mercy when they chose to attack medical researchers carrying a plague cure. Some lines once crossed can't be uncrossed. As if summoned by her words, the communication system crackled to life. Terran vessels, this is Fleet Admiral Korthak of the Vaktar Dominion. You are ordered to surrender the stolen research vessel and its contents immediately. Failure to comply will result in your destruction. Admiral Chen picked up the communicator, her voice calm and professional. Fleet Admiral, this is Admiral Chen. The vessel and its occupants are under Terran protection. I strongly advise you to withdraw your forces and return to Vaktar space. The response was immediate and predictably arrogant. Human, you face the might of 3 full battle fleets. Surrender now, or be obliterated. Admiral Chen set down the communicator and turned to her tactical officer. Commander Park, signal all vessels. Operation Cleanup is authorized. No survivors. The tactical officer smiled, and there was something predatory in the expression that made Zaranth's blood run cold. Yes, ma'am. All vessels report ready. Shall we show them what happens when you threaten medical personnel? Indeed we shall, Admiral Chen replied. For the record, Captain Zaranth, humans take a very dim view of anyone who interferes with medical aid. It's considered one of the most serious war crimes in our legal system. As the human fleet dropped their stealth fields and prepared to engage the approaching enemy forces, Zaranth realized that she had never truly understood what it meant to be a Deathworlder. The humans weren't just physically dangerous. They were something far more terrifying. They were protectors who would stop at nothing to defend those under their care. And the Vaktar were about to learn that lesson the hard way. The price of mercy. The battle began 18 hours later, and it was unlike anything Zaranth had ever witnessed or imagined possible. She stood on the bridge of the Retribution alongside Admiral Chen, watching the tactical displays as the 3 Vaktar battle fleets approached. 437 enemy vessels arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the confidence of predators who had never encountered anything they couldn't destroy. Admiral, the tactical officer reported, enemy fleets are assuming attack formation. They're targeting our lead vessels. Let them come. Admiral Chen replied calmly. All ships, hold position. Do not fire until my command. Zaranth clutched the railing as the first salvo of enemy fire reached them. The Vaktar planet crackers discharged simultaneously, sending streams of destructive energy that could vaporize moons racing toward the human fleet. She braced herself for impact, expecting to feel the ship shake under the assault. Nothing happened. The enemy weapons struck the human vessels and simply vanished, absorbed by defensive systems that Zaranth couldn't even see. The retribution didn't even register the impact on its sensors. "Interesting," Admiral Chen said mildly. "Their weapons are more advanced than the advance guard we encountered. These might actually scratch our paint." "Scratch your paint?" Zaranth stared at her in disbelief. "Admiral, those were planet crackers. Each one of those beams carried enough energy to destroy a small moon." "Yes," Admiral Chen agreed. "Quite impressive for their technology level. Unfortunately for them, human defensive systems are designed to withstand the output of stars going nova. A few plasma beams, no matter how energetic, aren't going to get through." The Vaktar fleets fired again, this time concentrating all their firepower on the retribution. Hundreds of energy beams converged on the massive human vessel, creating a light show that should have reduced it to atoms. When the glare faded, the ship hung in space completely undamaged. "Admiral," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the enemy flagship. Fleet Admiral Korthak is demanding to know what kind of shielding we're using." Admiral Chen smiled. "Tell him it's classified. Also ask him if he'd like to surrender now, or after we demonstrate our offensive capabilities." He's saying something about the honor of the Vaktar Dominion and how they'll never surrender to inferior beings," the communications officer reported after a moment. "Inferior beings," Admiral Chen repeated thoughtfully. "You know, Captain, I'm starting to take this personally. Commander Park, show them what human weapons can do. Target their rear guard, minimum power setting." Zaranth watched the tactical display as the human weapons came online. Instead of the energy beams or projectile weapons she expected, something far stranger happened. Reality itself seemed to twist around the targeted Vaktar ships, and then they were gone. Not destroyed, not vaporized. Gone. "What was that?" she breathed. "Dimensional disruptors," Admiral Chen explained casually. "They shift matter into parallel dimensions where the fundamental constants of physics are different. The targets cease to exist in our reality." "You can manipulate dimensions?" Zaranth felt faint. "Admiral, that's impossible. The energy requirements alone would be impossible for most species." "Yes," Admiral Chen agreed. "But humans have been harnessing the power of artificial black holes for over a century. When you can contain a stellar collapse in a reactor the size of your fist, energy requirements become less of a concern." The Vaktar fleets were now in chaos. 43 of their ships had simply vanished, and their remaining vessels were frantically trying to understand what had happened to them. Their formation was breaking apart as ship commanders attempted to evade an enemy they couldn't understand. "Signal from the enemy flagship," the communications officer reported. "Fleet Admiral Korthak is requesting parley." "Tell him he had his chance for negotiation," Admiral Chen replied coldly. "All vessels, weapons free. Sweep pattern Gamma. Leave no survivors." What followed was not a battle. It was an extermination. The human fleet moved with mechanical precision, their weapons reaching out across impossible distances to erase enemy vessels from existence. The Vaktar ships tried to run, tried to fight, tried to hide behind debris fields and sensor ghosts. It didn't matter. The human weapons found them anyway, and where they touched, Vaktar ships died. Some of the enemy vessels attempted to surrender, broadcasting desperate pleas for mercy on all frequencies. The humans ignored them completely. "Admiral," Zaranth said urgently, "some of them are trying to surrender, according to galactic law." "Captain," Admiral Chen interrupted, her voice harder than stellar metal. "Galactic law doesn't apply when you're dealing with beings who attack medical personnel. That's a line humanity will not allow to be crossed." "But mercy?" "I showed them mercy," Admiral Chen replied. "I gave them a chance to withdraw. They refused. Now they face the consequences. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, the space around them was empty, except for scattered particles that had once been a fleet of over 400 vessels. Not a single Vaktar ship had escaped. In the silence that followed, Zaranth stared at the tactical display showing empty space where moments before there had been the largest military force the Vaktar Dominion had ever assembled. Her hands were shaking, and she had to grip the railing to keep from falling. "Admiral," she whispered, "what have you done?" "We've sent a message," Admiral Chen replied matter-of-factly. "Anyone who attacks medical personnel or interferes with humanitarian aid will face the full response of the Terran Defense Force." "You've started a war," Zaranth said. "The Vaktar Dominion has thousands of ships, dozens of worlds. They'll come for revenge." Admiral Chen turned to face her, and for the first time since they'd met, Zaranth saw the true predator beneath the professional exterior. The human's eyes were cold, calculating, and completely without fear. "Captain, let me explain something about humans," Admiral Chen said quietly. "We don't start wars. We finish them. The Vaktar have a choice. They can accept that medical personnel are off limits and withdraw from all territories where humanitarian operations are taking place, or they can continue this conflict and discover why the rest of the galaxy considers Earth a death world." "They'll never agree to those terms," Zaranth protested. "The Vaktar are a proud species. They'll fight to the last ship rather than submit to human demands." "Then they'll die to the last ship," Admiral Chen replied with chilling certainty. "It makes no difference to us. Humans have been fighting and winning wars for our entire species' history. We're very good at it." Over the next several days, as they traveled toward Kethmaran space under the protection of the human fleet, Zaranth began to understand the true scope of what she had unleashed. The humans weren't just advanced warriors. They were something far more dangerous. They were idealists with the power to enforce their ideals. Reports came in from across the galaxy as news of the Vaktar fleet's destruction spread. Some species called for immediate restrictions on human military activities. Others quietly began withdrawing their own forces from territories where they had been oppressing weaker civilizations. The Vaktar Dominion itself was in chaos. Their leadership was split between those who wanted to negotiate and those who demanded total war against humanity. The decision was made for them when 3 more Vaktar fleets simply vanished from sensors while en route to attack human colonies. No wreckage was found, no distress signals were sent. They were there one moment and gone the next. "How?" Zaranth asked Admiral Chen when she heard the reports. "How did you destroy 3 fleets without any of your ships being present?" "Automated defense systems," Admiral Chen explained. "Humans learned long ago that the best way to protect something is to make attacking it impossibly costly. Any star system with human colonies is protected by weapon platforms that make our fleet ships look like toys." "Weapon platforms that can destroy entire fleets?" "Among other things, yes. We've found that most species become very polite once they understand the consequences of threatening human civilians. The cure was successfully delivered to Kethmoran research facilities, and within days, production had begun on a galactic scale. The plague that had threatened billions of lives was contained and eventually eradicated. Medical ships from dozens of species carried the cure to infected worlds, and none of them were harassed or attacked during their missions. Word had spread quickly about what happened to those who interfered with medical aid. As the Harmony's Edge was repaired and prepared to return to service, Zaranth found herself standing in the observation deck of the Retribution, looking out at the stars. Admiral Chen joined her, carrying 2 cups of a hot beverage that humans called coffee. "Regrets?" "Captain?" Admiral Chen asked, offering one of the cups. Zaranth accepted the coffee gratefully. She had developed a taste for the bitter human drink during their journey. "I don't know," she admitted. "The cure was saved. Billions of lives were preserved. But the cost—" "The Vaktar chose their fate," Admiral Chen said firmly. They could have walked away at any time. Instead, they chose to threaten innocent beings carrying medical supplies. That decision had consequences. Will there be peace now? Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment, sipping her coffee and watching the stars. There will be peace for medical personnel, she said finally, and for humanitarian operations. The galaxy has learned that humans consider such attacks to be acts of war, and that we respond to acts of war with overwhelming force. And if other conflicts arise, then they'll be someone else's problem, unless innocent lives are threatened or someone asks for our help. Admiral Chen looked at Zaranth with something that might have been kindness. Humans don't conquer, Captain. We protect. But we're very good at both when the situation requires it. Months later, as Zaranth returned to her quiet life as a researcher, she often thought about her time aboard the human vessel. The galaxy had changed. Medical ships traveled freely, protected by the invisible shield of human authority. Humanitarian operations proceeded without interference. The strong no longer preyed upon the weak with impunity. The price of that peace had been the near-total destruction of the Vaktar military and a clear demonstration that humanity possessed weapons beyond the imagination of most species. But perhaps, Zaranth reflected, that was a price worth paying. The Deathworlders had answered their call for aid, and in doing so they had made the galaxy a safer place for those who couldn't defend themselves. She could only hope that humans would continue to use their terrible power wisely, and that no one would be foolish enough to test their mercy again. Some lessons, after all, only needed to be taught once.